With my knees buried in the snow and my fingers purple from the cold, I realized the American dream could just as easily become a frozen nightmare. Me, a black man from Haiti, carrying a warm soul full of hope, was hiding behind a truck in a city I can't even pronounce correctly. My body trembled, but not from the cold. It was fear. It was rage. It was the cry I've been choking on since the day I stepped onto this land. You owe me an apology, America. Not for letting me in, but for spitting me out right after. All I wanted was peace. Not wealth, not fame, not luxury. Just the chance to sleep without hearing gunshots or screams. Just the right to walk without being hunted for the color of my skin or the accent of my voice. But here I am, treated like an invader, like a threat, like my life is worth less. As if I don't have the right to exist on this ground that has always promised freedom, but never once looked at me as free. They say this country is built on opportunity. That's a lie. It's built on invisible walls, each one held up by prejudice, hypocrisy, and fear. This is my story, and if you think I should stay silent because I'm undocumented, then listen until the end. Because maybe, deep down, the real problem isn't me being here. The real problem is that you don't want to face what this country has truly become. My name is Jean-Daniel Augustin. I was born and cared for, on the outskirts of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. If you've ever felt your stomach growl for 2 days straight, you understand where I come from. If you've seen your mother sell the only cooking pot in the house just to buy a bit of rice, then you've lived what I've lived. By the time I was 23, I had already given up on waiting for change. Politics was a joke. The police, a threat. Hunger, a routine. I grew up to the sound of gunfire and muffled prayers. Hope in Haiti is like a candle in a hurricane. Fragile, flickering non-stop, ready to go out at any moment. I tried to survive doing whatever I could, selling water at traffic lights, helping out at construction sites, hauling debris in the middle of the night. But every effort was swallowed by misfortune. One day, the roof collapses. The next, the boss vanishes without paying. In the end, the numbers never add up. And when I saw my mother faint from exhaustion while cooking a handful of flour with water, I knew, if I stayed, I would die slowly. I started looking for a way out. Not for luxury, but for dignity. The idea of going to the United States came like a cry for help, but I knew I'd never get an American visa. So I looked for another way. I found someone who could help me get to Mexico. From there, I'd be on my own. My mother, though she was against it, helped gather the money. She sold everything that was left, an old radio, a wooden chair, even her wedding rings. I sold what little I had too, 2 good shirts and a cracked phone. We scraped together just enough to pay for the trip to Mexico's border with Guatemala. That's how I left Haiti. No luggage, no certainty, no way back. I boarded a bus packed with people just like me. Desperate, drenched in sweat, eyes fixed on a future none of us could even be sure existed. I slept sitting up, hugging my backpack tight, clinging to fear. Every stop was a risk. Every town, a threat. I crossed the border into Guatemala on foot, used a fake name, pretended to be a tourist, hid whenever I had to. In Mexico, I was treated like garbage. The looks said it all. Just another black man. Just another poor soul. Just another burden. I stayed in overcrowded shelters that reeked of mold and despair. I worked just to eat, hid from the police, and prayed not to be sent back to a country that had already killed me inside. With each step, my goal was clear. Cross the border into the United States. They call it an invasion. I call it desperation. Before I decided to leave, I still believed Haiti could get better. I really believed it. I saw people on the streets trying, doing what they could with what little they had. Kids selling plastic bags in the middle of traffic. Mothers carrying babies on their hips while balancing buckets of water on their heads. It was all so precarious that if you looked from the outside, you'd call it misery. But for us, it was just daily life. On my street, electricity was a luxury. When the lights came on, the kids would cheer like it was Christmas. When it rained, the house floor turned to mud. We slept on thin mattresses, hoping no cockroach would crawl up our legs in the middle of the night. Still, my mother woke up early every day, carefully combed her hair, and walked out the door with the same tired smile as always. It was like pretending things were okay was the only shield we had against despair. I remember one day in particular. It was when they tried to kidnap my younger sister on her way to school. We managed to stop it, but the fear never left us. After that, my mother stopped letting her go out alone. We started living surrounded by invisible walls, fear, mistrust, anxiety. But what truly made me decide was one night. I had just come back from a side job unloading trucks at the port. I had earned the equivalent of $5. I was exhausted, but relieved. When I got home, I found my mother with swollen eyes. We had been evicted from the land. A city officer showed up with some men and tore down the wooden shack we had just finished fixing up. No warning, just because they could. We ended up in a makeshift camp made of torn tarps and broken tiles. And it was there, in that damp, heavy night, that I realized Haiti didn't want me anymore. I wasn't living. I was dragging myself forward. No matter how hard I tried, everything around me felt like quicksand. The more I fought to get out, the deeper I sank. And it's not just the poverty. It's the feeling that no one cares. That your life could end today, and the world wouldn't even blink. It's walking through the streets and seeing bodies on the ground, people screaming, starving children, and being forced to see it as normal. The protests? I've been there. I've shouted, I've run, I've been shoved back with tear gas. I've seen people dragged away, but nothing ever changed. Everything stayed the same, or got worse. The only constant was pain. The only certainty was fear. I started researching ways to leave. It wasn't easy. Most Haitians tried to go through Mexico. Some risked the sea. I didn't want to die on a boat, but I couldn't afford official tickets either. I got a contact who sold tourist visas. It was risky, but it seemed like the only possible crack in the wall. My mother, even though she didn't agree, helped me raise the money. She said she'd rather see me far away and alive than close and dead. We spent months collecting every coin, selling whatever we had left of value. A broken fan, a few good clothes, even her wedding ring. Deep down, I knew I might never see her again, but I couldn't think about that. I had to believe that if I made it out, maybe one day, she could too. My last day in Haiti was silent. No dramatic goodbyes. No movie-like hugs. Just a look that said everything words couldn't. She stood at the doorway of our makeshift shelter as I walked away with a backpack on my back. The heat was unbearable. Sweat rolled down my back, sticking my shirt to my skin. But the heaviest thing I carried was the guilt. The guilt of leaving her behind. The guilt of chasing a better life without knowing if I was strong enough for what was ahead. I carried with me a crumpled photo. The two of us standing in front of our old house, before it was torn down. Me at 12. Her smiling the way she hadn't in a long time. Even through all the suffering, even after being pushed out of my own land, I could still hear the whispers of those who stayed. Who leaves is a traitor. But I never betrayed my country. It was my country that betrayed me first. And you know what angers me the most? That so many people here in the United States look at me like I came chasing an easy life. Easy? There's nothing easy about leaving the place where you were born. There's nothing easy about walking through life in fear every single day. Do you really think I came here for luxury? I came because no one survives for long in a place where life is worth less than a glass of water. When you're born in a place like Haiti, you learn quickly that no one is coming to save you. You either take the risk, or you sink with everyone else. That's why I got into that makeshift boat. Crammed with more than 20 people, silent, clutching bags with the only belongings we could carry. It was nighttime. The sea was rough. No one really knew how to swim. Neither did I. But staying behind was worse. The boat was old, rotting wood, the kind poor fishermen use. It smelled of oil and despair. The holes were patched with cloth, and water kept pouring in through the sides. Every wave felt like it would flip us over. I gripped the edges so tightly my fingernails cracked. We were at sea for nearly 2 days. We had no idea where we were. The engine kept stalling, and the makeshift pilot kept saying we were close, but no one believed him. Some were vomiting, some crying, others praying. I just thought about my mother and tried not to panic. Thirst hit hard. The water we brought ran out on the first day. I started seeing spots in the sky. The heat was suffocating. My skin burned. When we finally spotted the coast, someone screamed. We cried. Some tried to jump in too soon, but the pilot yelled it was too dangerous. Eventually, we made it to solid ground. Honduras. Most of us fell to our knees. I kissed the dirt. We were alive, but the journey was just beginning. In Honduras, the police already knew we were migrants. They treated us like garbage, told us to leave quickly, like we were some kind of virus. So we started walking. I hitched rides with truck drivers, paid with the little cash I had tied in a pouch around my waist. I slept wherever I could, sidewalks, roadside ditches, abandoned stations. I crossed the Guatemala border on foot. My feet were swollen and aching inside torn-up sandals. The sun was merciless. The ground felt like fire. Every step was a fight against the urge to collapse and give up. I saw people fall behind. I saw people pass out, but I kept going. In Tapachula, southern Mexico, things got worse. The city was an open-air prison for migrants like me. I slept in filthy pensions, on bug-ridden mattresses with cockroaches on the pillows. I worked unloading crates at the market, just to eat rice and beans. There, I heard stories that froze my blood. Women raped in the jungle, children lost along the way, bodies dumped in the desert. Even so, no one turned back. Because behind us, there's only slow death. Ahead, at least there's still a chance.
I saved up a bit and paid a guide who promised to take us to the US border. He promised safety. Lies. There's only fear on this road. We were shoved into a truck with 10 others, hidden beneath tarps. We spent hours with no air. When we got out, we walked again, this time into the desert. The desert is a silent monster. By day, it burns you alive. By night, it freezes you. We slept wrapped in dirty cloths. Water was rationed by capfuls.
The blisters on my feet burst, blood mixing with the sand. My body ached, but the heaviest burden was in my mind. The constant fear, the uncertainty. One night I collapsed. I remember falling to my knees and not getting back up. They splashed water on my face. When I opened my eyes, I saw the sky full of stars and thought, this might be the end. But I stood up, not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. I had come too far. After days, we reached the river, the final obstacle. The water was dark, the current strong. I stepped in without thinking. My backpack soaked and dragged me under. I let it go. Came out the other side with nothing but the clothes on my back, but alive. I hid in the woods for a few hours. Then I walked until I found a road. I caught a ride in a fruit truck, hid between crates of rotting bananas. The smell was unbearable, but better than the desert. They dropped me near a small town in Texas. There, I found a shelter run by a church. They gave me a thin blanket and a cold sandwich. I slept straight through. My body gave out, but my head kept spinning, trying to understand where I even was. In the days that followed, I got a gig helping in the kitchen of a restaurant. I washed pots, scrubbed floors, did what no one else wanted to do. I met other Haitians living the same way. No one was really okay. We were just trying to breathe, without being seen. Every time I walked down the street, I felt eyes piercing through me. For being black, for having an accent, for being where, in their minds, I didn't belong. I was always afraid of being stopped, arrested, deported, even working, even staying silent. I was treated like an intruder. They call us invaders. But anyone who survives this journey doesn't ask for permission. We come in, because it's that, or die. Simple as that. I didn't choose this path for comfort. I chose it because there were no other paths left. And if you had seen what I've seen, felt what I've felt, maybe you'd climb into a rotten boat too, not knowing if you'd make it out alive. When I arrived in the United States, I thought the worst was behind me. I was wrong. The worst here doesn't come with a gun. It comes in silence, in looks of disdain, in the cold certainty that you'll never be treated as an equal. In the first days, I was still in shock. My head was spinning, my body ached, but I was breathing. I found a makeshift shelter with other Haitians. They helped however they could, sharing the little they had. We slept on the floor, wrapped in donated blankets. Fear clenched in our throats. Every noise on the street made my heart race. The city looked too clean, too organized. But I quickly realized, behind the neat facade, there was another kind of violence. A kind that doesn't scream, but slowly crushes you.
I started looking for work. With no documents, I took anything. Washing dishes, cleaning bathrooms, hauling rubble. I worked up to 14 hours a day. And still, the money barely covered food and a mattress in a tiny room shared with 4 others. Most were black, immigrants, unwanted. No one smiled in that place. Everyone walked hunched over, their shoulders heavier than their bodies. At the restaurant where I worked for a while, the manager pretended not to see me.
He called me boy like I was nothing. I stayed silent, not out of weakness, but out of necessity. With every dish I washed, I thought of my mother. It was for her, for the chance to give her a place where we didn't have to sleep fearing stray bullets. But here, fear changes shape. It's not the sound of gunshots. It's the fear of being stopped on the street because of the color of your skin. The fear of being asked where you're from and not knowing what to say. The fear of being deported, just for trying to exist. Once, I was approached by 2 men on the sidewalk while waiting to enter a construction site. They looked me up and down and asked, "Are you working or just wandering?" The way they said it hurt more than any slap. That's when I understood. For many, my very presence here is an offense. It doesn't matter if I work harder than them, wake up earlier, sleep less. The fact that I'm here is already too much. I've seen other immigrants give up. They went back to Haiti broken, as if they had never left. Others were arrested, deported, disappeared, and the ones who stayed learned to walk with their heads down, without complaint, as if existing was a crime. But I can't stay silent anymore, because what I see every day is hypocrisy. Here they use our hands to build their towers, clean their offices, care for their children, but they don't want to see our faces in the streets. They want our strength, but not our presence. I've known hard work since I was a child. In Haiti, I carried water in buckets, pushed carts loaded with cement bags. The difference? Back home, they looked at me with pity. Here, they look at me with disgust. I'm not a criminal. I'm not lazy. I'm a survivor. And only those who've lived what I've lived know what it means to wake up every day with fear, and still get up anyway. The police drive by and I freeze. The manager yells and I swallow it. The neighbor avoids me and I pretend not to notice. And even with all that, I keep cleaning, delivering, building. Because in the end, the country that rejects me is the same one that rests on my shoulders to function. If I'm an invader, then why do you rely on me to wash your clothes, build your buildings, and clean your tables? If I'm a problem, why do you accept my labor and pretend not to see my face? I'm tired of pretending everything's fine. Tired of apologizing for breathing. I entered this country without permission, but it was this country that pushed me to do it. Because no one chooses to cross deserts, sleep on concrete, eat from the trash, just to be a burden. People do that because they want to live, because they have no other choice. And even after all of it, I still hear, "Go back to your country," as if I left something decent behind, as if I abandoned comfort for adventure, as if Haiti wants me back. Today, I live in a cramped room, share a bathroom with strangers, and eat rice and eggs almost every day. But I'm still here, still fighting, still breathing. And if that bothers you, maybe the problem isn't me. The problem is the image you've built of us. Black, poor, with accents. People who work too much and earn too little. People who are inconvenient, just for existing. You don't want to know who I am, where I come from, what I've lost or what I dream of. You judge me by the color of my skin, by the way I speak, by the clothes I wear. You pretend I'm invisible, but the moment you get the chance, you point fingers. You say I'm a threat, but you don't have the courage to look in the mirror and see what really frightens you. What bothers you isn't my presence. It's the guilt my existence exposes. You owe me an apology, America. Not for letting me in, but for pretending I don't exist. Today, when I wake up and look out the window of the cramped room where I live, I see a country that isn't mine, but it isn't theirs either. Because what they built here is a place that pretends to be free, but only makes room for those who fit the mold. And I don't fit. I'm not white. I wasn't born here. I don't speak like them. But that doesn't make me any less worthy. I've survived raging seas, scorching deserts, eyes full of disdain, and hands that pushed me away. I've walked miles on an empty stomach, lost everything I had, and kept going. And still, when I pass someone on the street, what I see in their face isn't respect. It's fear. It's rejection. And that's okay. I don't expect applause. But I also won't accept being treated like garbage. Not after everything I've been through. America loves to call itself the land of opportunity. But it hides the truth, that those opportunities are only for the ones born with the privilege of being accepted. I came here with nothing, and still, I'm standing. You can ignore me, but I'm the one who delivers your food, who cleans your office, who holds up the scaffolding of your city. You can hate me, but I'm the one carrying this country on my back while you pretend not to see me. You call me an invader, but you live on stolen land too. The difference is, I didn't come with a gun or a flag. I came with hunger, with fear, with a will to live. And if that bothers you, maybe the real problem is in who you think deserves a better life than others. You say you respect the law, but you trample dignity every single day. You deny me a name, a voice, a place, but you never refuse my strength to clean the mess you make. You want me gone, but you won't get up from your chair to do what I do. If being an immigrant makes me a criminal, then what crime commits the one who shuts their eyes to our pain? You owe me an apology, America. Not for what I am, but for what you refuse to see. Because the real problem isn't my illegal entry. It's your selective morality. Drop a comment below. Do you think I deserve more respect from Americans? Or is this all just playing the victim?